Hey guys, it's Dave. Hope you've had a good day. Today I am once again going over my portfolio for the past few weeks, talking about the trades I've made in that time, and there have been several interesting ones that I think you might want to hear about, as well as overall performance and how I'm thinking about investing going forward. If you are new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing by the end of the video. If you're not new here, thank you so much for continuing to watch, and thank you to the channel members for helping to keep the channel going. Okay. With that out of the way, let's dive into my investing updates. Been quite an interesting month for me, but let's just start off with the overall performance. So this is my main account. It doesn't include my retirement account, which is generally a lot more safe and holding index funds and dividends, things of that nature. But we were down about 7.5% in the past month. So a little bit of a rough month for the portfolio. Zooming out though, for a 1-year basis, still up over 10% on the year. So, hey, that's not bad considering what's happened to some of my largest holdings like Tesla and Rocket Lab over the past year. Definitely been a tough year for those two holdings. So starting off with, I'm sure you're aware, Rocket Lab stock did crash to around 3.8-ish. I do consider that to be quite a bargain. I was and have been thinking that I was probably done adding Rocket Lab stock, but I can't really help myself when it hits these levels, so I did add more. Sorry if it's a little tough to see here, but I added about 1,040 shares, managed to scrounge up some cash to do that. I'm selling the little bit of crypto I have and just depositing some money over just to add some shares if I can. So the price I got for this wasn't perfect for sure, but that's when the cash came available, so I just bought it when I could. 3.92. I know there was some people out there buying in the 3.8s or 3.80, so congratulations to you if you are one of those people. Yeah, that was the big purchase I made on Rocket Lab this past week. So in terms of my total position on the company now, I have 3 separate accounts, which is a little annoying here that you have to kind of combine them and add them up. But we're looking at a total share count of 13,640. Average cost now down to $4.41. That puts my amount invested at $60,000. I remember when I first started this, I was originally planning to just cap it at 50 and call that a day, but I haven't been able to help myself with these downturns. It's just seemed like, a good deal, so I have ended up adding more. And luckily, I was able to average down to do that. So that means I think a little bit of a fun thought experiment here is in my spreadsheet, I did make a price target. I probably have to adjust this a little bit, but it was around $29 in 2028. So towards the end of 2028, we're looking at $29 per share if my thesis did play out. Theoretically, if that happened, how much would these shares be worth? The answer is just shy of $400,000. So I really hope that does happen. We'll have to see. That's not what I would call FU money, so I wouldn't be able to just go ahead and retire on that by any means. But it's definitely life-changing money. No doubt about that. You can definitely significantly change your life with $400,000 and just the snowball effect on that if you continue to invest in the future. So that would be a very exciting figure to me. And hopefully if I ever did get a return like that, I would put my total net worth north of the $1 million mark, something that I have, wanted to achieve for quite a long time, never got there, but, it's still a work in progress. If you feel like sharing in the comments below if Rocket Lab hits $29 per share or whatever your price target happens to be, what kind of a value would that drive? Because that is one thing that you may want to factor into your decision-making process, and it's always just a fun thought experiment. Interesting trade I made here on Reddit, and I did tweet about this, so if you're a Twitter follower, you probably saw the details, but basically I was pretty confident that Reddit would maybe rise a little bit off the IPO or SPAC and then crash like these things often do. I see this pattern play out so many times, and lately I've decided to do a little bit more short-term trading just for fun, not touching my long-term holds, but just to see if I can make a little bit extra cash on the side. So this is actually my first time doing a full-out short. I've bought puts before, but this was a literal short. So what happens is I sold 12 shares of Reddit, which I did not own, on March 26th for about $67 per share. Now, April 2nd, so that's like a week later, not very much time at all, we did have that crash play out as I thought it might, and the share value was sitting around $44. Now, I did still think this was a little bit of a rich valuation for the company, but it was kind of leveling off a little bit, and this was supposed to be a short-term trade, not something I want to get stuck paying fees on, because you have to pay fees to borrow these shares you don't own in order to sell them, which is a little bit annoying. So I just decided, you know what, let's get out now. Let's take our profits. Honestly, we're looking at about 33% in a week. Like, you can't complain about that. That is absolutely amazing. Now, of course, I just wish I had made the trade bigger, but we'll take $267 in a week, any day of the week. Pretty happy with how that one turned out. Now, here is an interesting one. We have Intuitive Machines. This stock has been on quite a wild ride of late. They did have their lunar lander going to the moon, got a lot of press coverage. The stock did moon pretty literally. Their lander was mostly successful, although it did have some quite well documented issues. I didn't participate in that, but I did know, because I happen to follow the space industry quite closely, that NASA was going to be announcing some companies to move forward with their lunar vehicles on April 3rd. Now, this was just a feasibility study, so not the full value of the rover, but I still thought it was an extremely exciting event, likely to move the stock, because if you win this, not only do you get some pretty high margin money to do this study, you're immediately on the short list of one of the few companies that may end up getting the full contract for this lunar terrain vehicle, something that would be worth $4+ billion and just a massive contract for Intuitive Machines. So I didn't have any inside information, but I just felt from following the company and looking at the other options and knowing that NASA was going to pick more than one to continue with studies on the feasibility, I felt very strongly that Intuitive Machines would get chosen as one of the winners. So I took a position on it on a short-term basis with the thought that I think if they do get announced that award, the stock should go up. So what did happen? Well, I purchased some shares on March 27th at around 12:30 p.m. Probably made this trade bigger than I really should have, but I was just feeling so confident that this was going to happen. So, I put around $3,600 into it. Now, this is always planned to be a short-term trade. I'm not yet convinced that the value is good for the company to buy and hold long at these levels. So it's something I didn't want to stay in long term. So then what happens the exact same day that I bought my shares? This article came out 5:40, so we're talking like just after the market closed, the exact same day. Everything was going good, and Intuitive Machines announced a shelf offering of $300 million to raise capital. Now this kind of just goes on their shelf so they can execute it when they want to. It's not immediately diluting shareholders, but it was still a big blow. Nothing I could really do about it, out of my control, that they decided to make this announcement when they did. But as an investor, I had to know that this was a possibility. I did know that they'd probably want to raise additional capital at some point. And, when you're short-term trading, you open yourself up to these black swan events or unexpected news events hitting you hard, and that's what happened here. I'm not going to sit and complain about it. I took the risk, and that's what happened. But this thesis could still play out. So what happened a few days later? Yes, that is right. Intuitive Machines did indeed win the contract I was thinking they would. So this study to see how feasible their lunar train vehicle design was announced. They were awarded $30 million as the prime contractor. Now they're working with a few other companies, but they are the leader on the project, so they got the cash. And, that puts them on the short list. They're like one of 3 companies that would get this, or one of 3 rovers that would land this contract. Absolutely massive, talking $4+ billion. Very prestigious if they did get it, building the rover for NASA, driving around on the moon one day. Extremely exciting stuff. So I thought, good chance the stock still rises and everything turns out okay. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. We had a little bit of a pop same day this was announced, a couple percent, and then it just dropped even further. So maybe a bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news situation, or maybe the algos and most people are just looking at that initial dollar amount of 30 million and thought, who cares? Personally, I feel like it justified a much larger move in the stock, but it didn't happen. Them's the breaks when you try these short-term trades. But let me know why you think the stock didn't move down below in the comments if you have any ideas. So ultimately, I decided time to get out. My prediction was correct, but what I thought the stock would react to that prediction was incorrect. So that's rough because, everything played out exactly like I thought it would in terms of them getting the announcement and all that. But yeah, just rough. But I do think overall my track record on the space industry for some of these events is pretty good. So I'm not totally discouraged yet from trying some other trades in the future. A little bit of a bad luck event with that shelf offering. Did end up losing on this one because I always want to be transparent and share my losses as well as my gains. Lost about $700. So probably if there's any lesson to be made from this, it's that I did probably go too heavy on this trade. You can see I bought shares as opposed to doing an option because I, wasn't incredibly confident and I still wanted to be able to get out and keep, at least some of my money if the stock stayed flat. And you can do that with buying the stock versus buying a call option, obviously. So that's too bad, but that's how it goes. And then there is my Rocket Lab put. So I did share this in a previous video, but a while back I sold some puts for Rocket Lab, which basically means if Rocket Lab is below $4 on April 19th, I will have to buy 4,000 shares for a cost basis of $3.76. Now, I still think that's a pretty darn good price, so if that did happen, I wouldn't be particularly upset, but at the same time, I wasn't planning to go quite that heavy into Rocket Lab, and I do like to still have some balance in my portfolio. I know some people just love to go all in 100% on their favorite companies, but me personally, I like to have some dividends. I like to have some ETFs and index funds to keep safe in the volatile times, especially if you turn out to be incorrect about something. So the other option I could do is roll it over. I was checking the fees if I were to just roll over this expiry date into a further out date like May 3rd. If I did that, it looks like I could get about 5 to 10 cents per share here. So the bids asked to close out of these puts would be, it would cost me about 25 to 30 cents per share. And then if I were to sell new puts at the new expiry date, I'm looking to 30 to 35 cents per share. So I should be able to get 5 to 10 cents if I do indeed need to roll it over, which, I wouldn't mind because then that reduces my cost basis if it does eventually get put to $3.66 if it's 10 cents, and it gives me more time for Rocket Lab to bounce back and get above that $4 mark, because personally I do feel like it's only a matter of time before it's above $4 again, and I just keep the entire original premium, which was my initial plan. But of course, if I do end up with the shares and get assigned them, I don't mind too much. I'll have to sell something that I didn't want to sell. It might end up being my Google or something else, but I think if I do get assigned Rocket Lab at 376, eventually I'll do very well on those shares as well. So that's the status of the put. I do still have a bit of time before it expires. It's possible the stock gets back above 4 before April 19th, and I don't have to worry about any rolling over or anything else, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. So that's what I've been up to over the past several weeks, probably 3 or 4. Let me know what you think about any of those trades down in the comments below. Am I an idiot for trying to do a short-term move on this Intuitive Machines announcement? Do you think the Rocket Lab one's going to turn out okay? And let me know what you've been doing as well. Always interested to continue the discussion, especially as it pertains to space companies. If you are new here and you enjoyed the video, I hope you will consider subscribing. If you're not new here, thank you for staying to the end, and I hope you all, regardless, have a great rest of the week. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.